Welcome to In the Know News. Feeling drained by endless screen time? Today, we're diving into digital detox for mental well-being. From personal stories to research-backed tips to help you unplug and recharge. Let's explore how stepping back from tech can boost your mood, focus, and balance. Stay tuned.
All right, everyone, get ready because today we're going to really dig into digital detoxing. We've got a ton of interesting sources here, everything from personal blog posts about someone's first time taking a break from tech for 24 hours to academic studies about the impacts of a 2-week social media detox.
We even have some practical advice from a podcast and insights from a mental health website.
Yeah, it's a real mix. And we're going to use all of this to answer a question I think a lot of us have probably thought about. Is it even possible to do a full digital detox anymore?
Especially in today's world, right?
Yeah. And if it's not possible, what can we do to manage how we use tech so it helps us instead of, being a problem?
Such a great question and really important in our world. But first, maybe we should start by making sure we all know what digital detox really means. The Oxford English Dictionary says it's a period of time during which a person refrains from using electronic devices. They see it as a way to de-stress or focus on things in the real world instead of online.
Yeah, like the classic image of someone ditching their phone to go live in a cabin in the woods.
Exactly. But it's not always that simple. The research we're looking at actually suggests we need to think about digital detox in a more complex way. This one study, Taking a Break, the effects of partaking in a 2-week social media digital detox on problematic smartphone and social media use and other health-related outcomes among young adults has a broader definition.
Wow, that's a really long title.
Super academic. Basically what they're saying is digital detox can be anytime you intentionally use digital devices less, whether it's certain apps or even just setting time limits. The main thing is that it's a choice you make to change things for the better.
So not just because your phone died and you're forced to be offline.
Yeah, it's about being in control of how you use tech.
Which brings up an interesting point. That Going Phone Free article we have makes a good argument that completely detoxing from digital stuff is basically impossible now.
Yeah, that's true. Technology is everywhere in our lives these days.
Totally.
Yeah.
Banking, working, how we connect with people, even ordering food.
Exactly. Since the pandemic, it feels like we've become even more reliant on technology. That same article mentions a study where they found over half of British adults spend over 11 hours a day looking at screens.
11 hours. That's kind of scary.
It does make you think, right? And with so many people working remotely or having relationships online, it can be even harder to disconnect from tech. Sometimes it even makes people anxious to try.
That makes the idea of a social media-specific detox pretty appealing. I don't know if I could completely unplug, but maybe I could go a week without Instagram.
It's a great example of how we can tweak the whole digital detox idea to work for our lives now. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
I like that. Speaking of making it work, one source that really struck a chord with me was this blog post titled, "My First Digital Detox." It's about the author's experience trying to go tech-free for a day.
Oh, interesting. What stood out to you about it?
Well, at first they were even unsure if listening to the radio was allowed. It just shows how used to technology we are, how our brains almost fight the idea of unplugging.
But we don't know how to be bored anymore, right?
Exactly. But the cool part is the author starts to change as the day goes on. They begin to like the quiet and even get lost in doing chores.
That's awesome.
It's like they rediscovered this feeling of just being present and calm that all the digital noise had covered up.
I love that. Even small changes can have a big impact.
Definitely. But how do we even know if we need a digital detox? What are the signs that maybe our relationship with tech is becoming unhealthy?
The Protecting Your Mental Health website we have has some good points about that. One big thing they talk about is comparison culture. How seeing everyone's perfect lives online can make you feel bad about your own.
Oh, yeah. Like when you scroll through Instagram and suddenly you feel like your life is terrible because everyone else is on amazing vacations.
Totally. It's that fake reality that social media often shows, and then there's the constant news and notifications. It can be so exhausting mentally.
It's like our brains are always switched on, never getting a break.
Exactly. And of course, there's FOMO, the fear of missing out. It keeps us glued to our phones, trying to get that little rush from likes and shares. It can turn into a real addiction.
Definitely. And don't forget about how it messes with our sleep. All that blue light from our devices makes it harder to fall asleep.
That's so true. Staying up late scrolling through our phones has become so normal, but it's not good for us at all.
All right, listeners, time for some honesty. Do any of these things sound familiar? Are you feeling that pressure to compare yourself? Are you overwhelmed by information? Do you feel like you can't miss out on what's happening online? Are you having trouble sleeping? Because if so, a digital detox might be just what you need.
And remember, it doesn't have to be extreme. There are ways to do it, even if you need to use tech every day.
That's a relief. Because like we said, for many of us, going completely offline just isn't realistic. So how can we detox without becoming hermits? What does a practical digital detox actually look like?
Well, this podcast called 268 How to Do a Practical Digital Detox has some great advice from an expert named Sean Lemon. He says one of the most important things is to start small, gradually using your devices less instead of trying to quit cold turkey.
Baby steps.
Exactly. He also says it's good to schedule times where you don't use any screens, like making meal times tech-free, and creating zones in your house where phones are off limits, like the bedroom or the dinner table. That can help a lot with setting boundaries.
I like that. Simple but effective ways to create some space from tech.
And you know what else he suggested? Moving those tempting apps off your home screen. Put them in a list somewhere else so they're not right there in front of you all the time.
That's smart. You can still use them if you need to, but they're not constantly tempting you.
And of course, turning off notifications for things that aren't super important can make a big difference.
Oh my gosh, those little red notification bubbles are the worst.
They really are. By doing these small things, we can start to break those addictive patterns and focus on other things. It's about being mindful and intentional with our technology instead of letting it control us.
So it's not about becoming anti-tech, it's about being in charge and making sure technology fits into our lives in a healthy way.
That's a great way to put it. It's all about finding that balance.
I'm starting to feel like this is something I can actually do, but I'm curious, what does the research say about the benefits of a digital detox? Like, do these things actually work?
That's where the study, Taking a Break, comes in. And it's really interesting. They had people limit themselves to just 30 minutes of social media a day for 2 weeks.
Okay, tell me what happened. What did they find?
Well, people said they felt much better mentally and emotionally, less stressed, more satisfied with their lives, even more present in the moment. They also slept better, falling asleep faster, and waking up more rested.
Wow, that's amazing, just from cutting back on social media.
I know, right? And they even found that people's relationships got better. Participants felt more connected to their loved ones and had better conversations with them.
I'm sold. Sign me up for this 30-minute experiment. But before I do, are there any things about this study we should know about? Like, any limitations?
Of course. Like with any research, there are limitations. In this one, everyone did the detox, so there wasn't a group to compare them to who didn't do it. Also, while they tracked social media use on phones, they couldn't track it on other devices like laptops or tablets.
So it's possible people were still using social media just on different devices.
Right. But even with those things in mind, the results are still encouraging. They really do show that being mindful of how we use technology is important.
Being mindful, I like that. So it's not about getting rid of technology altogether. It's about finding that balance.
Exactly. Both the Going Phone-Free article and the Taking a Break study talk about digital mindfulness. It means being more intentional with our technology use.
So instead of scrolling without thinking, we choose when and how we're going to use it.
Yeah, like setting a goal before you open an app or only looking at content that's meaningful to you. In the article, they mention an anthropologist named Amber Case who used tracking tools and apps to help her be more aware of how she used social media. She was shocked to find out she was clicking on Instagram something like 80 times a day. But by knowing that, she could start to change her habits.
80 times. Wow. I don't even want to think about how many times they do that.
It can be really eye-opening to see how much we use those apps without even thinking about it.
Totally. And it sounds like finding that sweet spot is really important, like that Goldilocks effect they talked about.
Yeah.
Figuring out what amount of tech use feels right for you. Maybe 30 minutes is perfect for some people, while others need more or less. It's all about experimenting.
And figuring out what works best for your life, right?
Right. So listeners, what are your thoughts so far? What's resonating with you? What are you thinking about differently when it comes to your own relationship with technology? Feeling inspired to try a digital detox?
Or maybe you're already thinking about how to be more mindful with your tech.
Well, you'll have to stick around to find out, because that's exactly what we'll be talking about in part 2 of our digital detox deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Before we jump back in, let's quickly recap. We were talking about the results of the Taking a Break study and how just 30 minutes of social media a day made a big difference for the participants.
Right. I'm really curious to know what happened after the 2 weeks were over.
Yeah.
Did people stick with those healthier habits or go back to their old ways?
Well, there is a little bit of a rebound effect at first.
Rebound effect, does that mean they just went crazy on social media again?
Exactly. Many people admitted to spending way more time on social media than they were allowed during the study. It's kind of like when you tell yourself you can't have your favorite food, you just want it even more.
I totally get that. But if everyone went back to using social media a lot, did the detox even matter in the long run?
That's the really interesting part. Even though there was that initial rebound, the study found that people were still using social media less overall than they were before the detox, even 2 weeks later.
Seriously, so even a short digital detox can have long-term effects.
That's what it looks like. It's like you're hitting the reset button on your habits. And the things the participants said about their experiences were really insightful.
Oh, tell me, what did they say?
A lot of them said they were much more aware of their digital habits afterward. They really thought about how much time they were spending on social media and, more importantly, why they were doing it.
That makes sense. It's
Oh,
like they were finally tuned in to what was making them reach for their phones.
Exactly. They could see when they were just scrolling mindlessly
Yeah.
and actually choose to stop. It's like they were back in control.
So it's not just about the amount of time, it's also about changing how you think about technology, right?
Absolutely. And that new awareness helped them make healthier choices even after the detox was over. Some people started setting their own limits, like having downtime without social media.
So the detox was like this jumpstart to a more balanced life.
I like that. And that's something we can all do even without a formal study. It's about paying attention, being intentional, and figuring out what works best for you.
I love that. You know, the Taking a Break study also had some good tips on how to make a digital detox easier and more successful. Like, a lot of people found it helpful to set their own rules instead of sticking to a strict time limit, maybe reducing their usual usage by a certain percentage.
Yeah, that's smart. It takes into account that everyone's different. What works for one person might not work for another.
For sure. And they also said it was easier to focus on the apps that were causing the most problems instead of trying to quit everything at once.
Totally. If TikTok is your biggest time waster, maybe you just focus on limiting that one first.
Like picking your battles, right?
Exactly. Another interesting thing they suggested was completely deleting or deactivating certain apps during the detox.
I could see how that would help with temptation. If it's not there, you can't use it.
And of course, lots of people said turning off notifications was a huge help. It's all about taking back control over your digital world.
Those notifications can be so distracting. It's like they're always pulling you back in.
They really are. But the important thing to remember is that we are the ones in control. We get to choose how and when we use technology.
Right. Okay, so the key things are starting slow, scheduling screen-free time, moving distracting apps, turning off notifications, and even using technology to help you with the detox. It sounds a lot more manageable now.
It really does. The main thing is that it's not about depriving yourself or going off the grid. It's about making thoughtful choices and creating a digital space that supports your well-being.
Yeah, and finding what works for you. It's all about experimenting and focusing on the changes you want to see.
One interesting finding from the study was that even though people were using social media less, their overall screen time stayed pretty much the same.
Oh, wow. So they were just spending time on other apps instead.
It seems like it. Many participants said they spent more time on things like games, streaming services, or just using their laptops more.
It's like we're so used to having that constant digital stimulation that we don't know what to do without it.
That makes you wonder if maybe we need to think about digital detox in a broader way. It might not just be about the apps themselves, but also the kind of content we're consuming.
That's a great point. Maybe it's about finding a balance between passively consuming things, like endlessly scrolling or binge watching, and doing things that are more active, like learning, connecting with people, or even just being in nature.
I love that. It's not about hating technology, it's about using it in a way that makes our lives better.
It's all about finding that balance where technology helps us instead of taking over.
Exactly. Before we move on, I want to mention that the Taking a Break study also looked at other benefits of digital detox. They found that it improved people's sleep, stress levels, overall life satisfaction, and even their physical activity.
Wait, a digital detox can affect your physical health too. Tell me more.
Well, people in the study said they were sleeping much better, falling asleep faster, sleeping more deeply, and waking up feeling more rested. It makes sense if they weren't looking at screens right before bed.
That makes total sense. What about stress levels and life satisfaction?
The study found big improvements in both areas. People felt less overwhelmed and more content with their lives.
Less stress, more happiness. That sounds pretty great to me. But what about the physical activity part? Did people actually start working out more?
It's a little tricky there. The study didn't find a big increase in moderate to vigorous physical activity, which is the kind they were specifically measuring.
Okay, but did people mention anything about being more active?
Actually, yes. Many of them said they were doing more low-intensity activities like walking, doing chores, or just sitting less overall.
So even if they weren't hitting the gym, they were still moving their bodies more.
Exactly. And those little changes can really add up over time. It suggests that taking a break from technology can encourage us to be more active in our everyday lives, even in small ways.
Like breaking free from that sitting all day lifestyle that technology often leads to.
I like that. It's all about taking back control of our bodies and minds and finding that balance between the digital world and the real world.
It's amazing how a digital detox can have these ripple effects on so many areas of our lives. Our mental health, our physical health, even our relationships.
It really can. It's about hitting that reset button and rediscovering the joy of being present in our lives and with the people we care about.
I'm totally on board. But I know some people might be thinking, this all sounds great, but I'm way too busy. I can't just disconnect. What would you say to them?
I'd say even making small intentional changes can make a huge difference. It doesn't have to be a total off-the-grid digital detox. Maybe it's just an hour of screen-free time each day, or making your bedroom a phone-free zone. Even just being more aware of when and how you use your phone can be a positive change.
It's all about those baby steps, right?
Yeah.
Maybe start with just one platform, like trying to limit your Instagram use for a week and seeing how you feel.
Exactly. The important thing is to find what works for you and stick with it. It's like any healthy habit. It takes time and effort.
But the benefits are so worth it. More energy, better sleep, less stress, stronger relationships. Who would want that?
It's all about being in charge of your time, your attention, and ultimately your well-being.
That's a perfect place to pause for now. We've covered so much in this episode, but there's still more to explore.
We've only just touched on the taking a break study, and we have those practical tips from the 268 podcast to discuss. Stay tuned because in the final part of our digital detox deep dive, we'll share those actionable strategies and hopefully inspire you to try a little digital detox experiment of your own.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm excited for this part because we're finally getting to the practical stuff, the actual tips for doing a digital detox.
Yeah, we've talked about the what and the why. Now it's time for the how.
Right. And luckily, we have some great advice from that 268 How to Do a Practical Digital Detox podcast. They had some really clever ideas for making this work, even if you're someone who uses tech all the time.
I loved that tip from Sean Lemon about moving those distracting apps.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Super simple, but so effective.
It is, like putting all those food delivery apps in a separate folder instead of having them right there on your home screen. Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. It's all about reducing those temptations and making it easier to make good choices.
Totally. He also had that idea about phone-free zones.
Which is so important.
It is. Having places or times where you just don't use any technology can be really helpful.
Like, imagine your bedroom as a tech-free sanctuary. You can actually relax and get a good night's sleep.
So important. Or even something as simple as meal times. Actually enjoying your food and being present with the people you're with without all those distractions. It's funny how basic things like that can feel so revolutionary nowadays.
It really is.
But speaking of technology, I thought it was interesting how Lemon talked about using tech to help you detox.
Right. There are so many apps out there designed to manage your screen time and minimize distractions.
Oh, yeah. Like those apps that block certain websites or social media platforms for a set time.
That's one way. Or some apps track your usage and kind of nudge you when you're getting close to your limit. It's all about getting a little extra support.
And of course, there's always the good old-fashioned method of just turning off those notifications.
Oh my gosh, yes. Notifications can be the worst.
It's like this constant stream of things demanding your attention.
Exactly. Turning off the ones that aren't absolutely necessary can be one of the best things you can do to regain your focus.
Okay, so to recap, we've got starting small, scheduling screen-free time, moving distracting apps, turning off notifications, and even using other tech to help us. It's feeling a lot more doable now, don't you think?
Definitely. It's not about deprivation or becoming some kind of tech-hating hermit. It's just about being mindful and setting up your digital world in a way that supports your well-being.
Yeah, and like we've been saying, it's about what works for you. It's all about experimenting and seeing what helps you make the changes you want.
Now, as we wrap up our digital detox deep dive, I'm going to leave you with a little challenge.
I like this.
What's one small change you can commit to starting today to create a healthier relationship with technology?
Will you silence those notifications? Maybe try making a phone-free zone in your house. Or how about trying that 30-minute social media limit? It's up to you, but taking that first step is so important.
And remember, even those small changes can lead to big results. More energy, better sleep, less stress, and stronger connections with the people you care about. It's all about taking back control and making technology work for you, not the other way around.
We'd love to hear what you decide to try. You can connect with us on social media, ironically enough, and share your thoughts, your struggles, your wins, because in the end, we're all figuring this out together. We can support each other in finding that balance with technology that helps us all thrive.
So, until next time, happy disconnecting.
Thanks for tuning in to In the Know News. If this video got you thinking about your tech habits, share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights on self-care, growth, and living well in the digital world. See you next time. And remember, balance is key.